Right, the Vikings. Now, we all know about the Vikings. We've all watched Netflix. We've all watched Marvel films. Thor, Loki, Odin. We've been educated. If we have a look what the AI says about the Vikings, the term Vikings primarily refers to Scandinavian seafaring people who from the late 18th to 11th century raided, traded, explored, settled across Europe and the Mediterranean, North Africa, Greenland and briefly North America. The word Viking means pirate or raider. Okay, let's see if you still think that by the time we get to the end. So look at this bit. Settled across Europe, Mediterranean, North Africa, Greenland and North America. I think you didn't say anything about the Vikings being in Russia. You are absolutely correct. The Vikings had a significant and lasting presence in the areas that are now Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's when we got into a bit of a discussion with AI about it being Western programmed Russophobe. Why would they not mention? Right, so let's have a look at the word Viking. As usual, we'll break the words down. We have a compound, 2 words, Vi-king. Vi in Scandinavian means we, so that can now read as we kings. And as we know, the sons of Israel, the Israelites love to call themselves the kings, so they called themselves Vikings. So the Vikings are in Denmark, and the Danes actually called Denmark Danmark, the mark of Dan, talking about the tribe of Dan. So the Vikings were the Danites, and the Danites were called the judges. They used serpents as one of their emblems, because God said he was going to turn Dan into a serpent and leave him sat at the side of the road biting horses' heels, which is also why you get the horse in the Danites. So they were the judges, were they? Well, the first thing we look at when we think about the judges, there we go, Metallica, Justice for All. We come to Metallica because their drummer, is he called? Yeah, he was a Danite, and I believe the manager is also a Danite. And then if you look at the Black Album, obviously we've got a serpent on the front of it. So while we're looking at words and names and things, a Scandinavian name is Von. And the word von, if we were just to translate that, it comes back to son or from. So we have Claude Van Damme. We have Ruud van Nistelrooy. We have Van Gogh. We take these words, van, and we're relating everything back to Ireland. The word van is actually an Irish word meaning son or from. We know this because if we translate the Brú na Bóinne to ancient Irish, it turns out it comes up as welcome to Venice. Ven. And the people that lived in Venice are the Venetians. So Ven means son, son, Esians. Cian is Lou's dad, Dian's son, Cain. So the Venetians literally translates to the sons of Cian. So when we come back to Tara, the Bruna Boyne, welcome to Venice, then Tara is the region where we find the sons of Cian, the Venetians. Right, so as we're relating this back to Ireland, we know what the Vikings look like. White skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. That's the Rh negative gene, which comes from Ireland. High in Rh negative blood, which comes from Ireland. They were the master shipbuilders and sailors. They were the Danites. And they were navigators, explorers and farmers, and highly intelligent. And as the AI has already shown us, they travelled all over the Western Hemisphere. So, the famous Vikings, or their gods and deities, the ones that Marvel like to educate us about. Start off with the first one, Odin. So, where did the name Odin come from? We get the word Odan. Odan, and King Odan was the first king of Scandinavia. And he was actually a Scottish Scythian. Trace it back, but King Odan, first king of Scandinavia. So what do we know about old Odin? We know Odin had 2 crows, and he used to wander the battlefields picking up the souls of the fallen. Yep, good story. Unfortunately, sorry Odin, already been done. That was done by the Morrigan, who had 2 crows and picked up the souls of the fallen. We know Odin hung himself and sacrificed an eye for knowledge. Which is, if you look at today's law, that's why they're all covering one eye up. Nice story, unfortunately, already been done. Lu sacrificed himself from a tree and sacrificed an eye for knowledge. Odin had a magic staff, which was called Gungnir. Very nice, cool magic staff. Unfortunately, Lu had a magic staff, or a spear, called the Spear of Destiny. Odin had a magic horse called Sleifer, which could run across water. Sorry Odin, that one got taken from Enbar of the flowing mane, which could also run across water. And Enbar, the white horse, was initially owned by Manannán, King Manannán of the Isle of Man, and he gave it to Lu after Lu had finished his training on the Isle of Man, and he had to go back to Ireland to take up his position of the king of the Tuatha De Dananns. Manannán gave him his horse, Enbar, and Lu rode Enbar across the Irish Sea, riding across the wave of Thoth. I had that name before somewhere as well. Let's have a look at Thor. Thor's famous for his big hammer. Marvel told us this. Sorry Thor, you've already got beaten to that one by the Dagda. The Dagda had a big smash everything hammer. Thor got his strength from his belt, a magic belt called Meninglaw. Sorry Thor, you took that one from the Dagda as well. The Dagda had a magic belt that gave him all his strength. We have Loki, the trickster god. If you watch my other videos, you will know that the name Loki comes from Loki Brenner, which is the torch of Loki, which is Sirius. That's plagiarized, and the trickster god also plagiarized, because Lou is called the trickster god. Loki was also known to be a shapeshifter. Handy little attribute to have. Oops. The Tuatha De Danann were also called shapeshifters. Plagiarise that one as well. Loki was charming, handsome, with questionable morality. Sorry Loki, even that one's been stolen, because the Tuatha's Bress the Beautiful was charming, handsome, and had questionable morality, until he had to be taken out. Right. The Vikings are famous for the longboats. Everyone knows about the Sutton Hoo and the longboats, etc. They all had dragons on the front of them. The Tuatha De Danann are called the 13th Order of the Dragon. And the Viking longboats in Sutton Hoo, the one that they're repairing and putting back together. Now, answer me this. If you were to nail together a longboat, where would you get your nails from? Because they found out that the steel used for the nails in the longboat at Sutton Hoo, the steel came from Britain. So, is it a case of the Vikings came over here in canoes and then decided to build the longboat when they'd already got here, to sail home again? I don't think so. I think the technology for that boat building came from Britain and went to Denmark. Earlier we mentioned Russia. Rus. Now everyone thinks that Rus means red state. Russia, the red state, because it has a red flag. Again, partially correct. The word Rus actually means red hair. And the Viking tribe of the Rus is where the red hair bit comes from. So the word Rus isn't Russian, it's Viking. We also have the Viking tribes of the Ravens, also known as the Light Elves. We also know that the Tuatha De Danann like to call themselves the Elven folk. And if you watch my video from a couple of videos ago, Elvin, sons of El. We have the Fenrir tribe, and they were called the Frost Giants. And then also we have Eric the Red, Eric the Rus. Now just have a quick look at a couple of Viking symbols. We have Odin's horn, Valknuts, Trakira, the Try, They're all Irish. The try comes from Ireland. Personally, I believe the try is Sirius A, B and C. But at the moment that's just speculation. Bottom left we have the black sun, Sirius. Bottom right we have the Kolovrag, which is basically the swastika, which we know is Sirius, and if you flick it around and paint it white, you have the Magi, which represents the white sun, Sol. And there we have Lu's shield. And finally, the Trequery, Irish.